The old house on Crimsonwood Lane was notorious, not just for its age, or the way its clapboard siding groaned in the wind like a mournful sigh, but for the things that were said to have happened inside. The disappearances, the unexplainable cold spots, the faint, maddening whispers that bled through the walls at night. For Jack, a budding paranormal investigator armed with a thermal camera and a healthy dose of skepticism, it was a perfect subject. His last few gigs had been a bust, a faulty thermostat, a family of squirrels in the attic, so the Crimsonwood house would be his chance to prove himself. He set up his equipment in the living room, a space so thick with dust and decay it felt less like a room and more like a tomb. The first hour was a predictable exercise in futility. The thermal camera showed nothing but ambient temperature. The EMF meter was silent. The only sounds were the house's own settling groans and the innocent drip of a leaky faucet. Jack's initial excitement began to wane. He was about to pack it in when he noticed the old record player in the corner. Its wooden case was warped and cracked. Its speaker, a tarnished bronze trumpet, pointed at the ceiling. A single, unmarked record sat on the turntable. Curiosity, his greatest professional weakness, got the better of him. He carefully placed the needle on the record. A wave of static hissed from the speaker, followed by a faint, crackling voice. It was speaking in an ancient language, a series of guttural sounds and sharp clicks that felt less like speech and more like a physical presence pressing against his eardrums. He didn't understand the words, but he felt their weight. A profound, bone-deep terror settled over him, the kind that had nothing to do with fear of the unknown and everything to do with the certainty of a malevolent intelligence. The temperature in the room plummeted. Jack's breath plumed in the air. The thermal camera screen lit up in a brilliant, pulsating blue. Something was there. Something that radiated a cold that wasn't just a lack of heat, but an active, draining force. The whispers began, not from the walls, but from a point directly behind him. They were a crowd of voices, all speaking at once, their tones a mixture of pleading and mockery. Jack's skepticism shattered. He fumbled for his recorder, his hand shaking so badly he could barely press the button. As he did, the voice on the record changed. It stopped its ancient incantations and began to speak in a perfect English. "Hello, Jack," it rasped. "You've been so very kind to join us. We've been waiting." A figure formed in the corner of the room, a swirling vortex of shadows and cold. It was vaguely human-shaped, but its limbs were too long. Its head tilted in an impossible angle. 2 points of crimson light glowed in the darkness where his eyes should have been. "You're not a skeptic anymore, are you?" the thing said. Its voice a symphony of the whispers that surrounded him. "We love it when they stop believing. It makes them so much easier to break." Jack stumbled backwards, tripping over a dusty rug. He scrambled to his feet, his mind racing for an escape. The record player continued to play, the needle scratching a groove into the record that seemed to grow deeper with every rotation. The demonic presence took a step forward, the floorboards groaning under an unseen weight. "You thought you were a ghost hunter," it said, its face full of chilling amusement. "But you're a collector. You brought us something, and we are so very, very grateful." Jack's eyes fell on the recorder clutched in his hand. He looked from the recorder to the entity, a horrifying realization dawning on him. The record player wasn't playing the record. The record player was playing him. It was a trap. The entity had been waiting for a living person to come, to bring their soul, their consciousness, to its doorstep, and to give it a vessel to enter. Jack's own desperate desire to capture something real, to record the supernatural, was the very act that would allow it to cross over. He dropped the recorder, but it was too late. He felt a searing, icy sensation shoot up his arm, as if 1,000 needles were being plunged into his vein. The world began to spin. He saw the room from a new perspective, from a high vantage point near the ceiling. He looked down and saw his body standing there, but it wasn't him. It was the creature. The two glowing red eyes now looked out from his face, and a cruel, silent smile stretched across his lips. The last thing Jack Thorne saw was his own body, animated by a malevolent force, calmly walking over to the record player and removing the record. The entity in his body placed it back in the dusty sleeve, and then turned to the window, its new eyes blazing out at the night. The sound of the record player stopped, but the whispers in the house didn't. They had a new source now. They had him.